Hey everybody, this is Perch. Let's talk about pricing, comic book pricing. Comic book pricing is one of those things that everybody knows it's wrong. Everybody knows it's too high, but nobody really knows what to do with it. So every now and then, somebody, a comic creator, will go on Facebook or go on to Twitter and say, Twitter is what you should do with Twitter, but they go on to those platforms and say, man, comics are too expensive. And then occasionally we'll get into arguments with other creators of like, well, people wouldn't buy it if they didn't want it. And it's just kind of a sad argument. The way people look at it, unfortunately, is that, hey, if we lower the price of comics, then we're going to get paid less. And that sucks. A lot of us are not getting paid enough anyway. And you're right. That's true. A lot of the comic creators are paid low, and there isn't a lot of money in comics. So this prospect of like, we need to lower the prices, it doesn't sound good. And why, you might say, well, if you lower the prices, then you'll sell more books, and so you'll make up for it. You may not get a big raise, but at least, you'll have the same amount of money and you'll have a wider audience. That's better for you long term, right? The problem is this is the unspoken thing that, nobody will say aloud. And that's nobody believes that if you lower the price, more people will come. Now, why don't they believe that? I mean, isn't it logical? If you reduce the price, then you'll sell more things. Well, people believe, whether they say it out loud or not, including a lot of the newer people, the people who like to rage out and claim about these old toxic fans and everything else. Those old toxic fans are keeping this industry alive. And those old toxic fans, like me, are kind of dumb in that we're buying it at $1.99, we're buying it at $2.99, we're buying it at $4.99 because screw it. We've gotten older, we have a little bit more money, and we're just along for the ride until we're broke. That's I'm being sarcastic. Please don't come in the comments to tell me that I'm insulting how much money you make. My point here is that it's an interesting side effect of comics that people scream at the toxic bad fans, the fans we don't want, these old fans who are aging out. But it's like, but you realize those are the people keeping the industry afloat, and those are also the people that, by and large, even though they complain every now and then, are the people who suck it up and have slowly paid more and more and more for comics. These are the people who are buying those $4.99, $5.99, $7.99, $9.99 anniversary issues. It's not the casual person who walks in the store. It's not this mythical new audience that you're getting because, hey, we're adding these new diverse characters that show that everybody can be in a comic. That's how we're going to grow it. Well, guess what? Those new diverse people are smarter than those legacy comic customers, and they are not interested in spending $9.99 for a comic. They look at that and go, y'all are crazy. See, that's that Texas part of me right there. That's what they're saying. It's almost funny to people on Twitter who are like, yeah, I'm up for this. Yeah, you guys aren't buying the comics. You're not. You're pirating it by and large. Look, I mean, here's the funny thing, and you're seeing more and more people say it from quote unquote, that other side. The side that's been so angry at the historical comic buyers. You're seeing them say things like, what was it the other day? Comics Twitter doesn't read comics. It was like, wow. You go and look at this person's profile and their what they're all about, and this is not like some right wing Comicsgate person saying this. This is somebody with 800 pronouns in the profile, and they are they're basically saying, yeah. This audience, the audience that's young and screaming, they're not buying comics. It's time to admit it. They're not buying comics at all, and they're not. It's absolutely proven that the people who are very aggressive, very loud on social media, are not investing in comic books. They are not the regular readers. The regular readers are the same old people who are, yes, slowly dying out, but those are the people who will pay $4.99 for a comic and grumble, but still get out their wallet. That's who's buying it. So that's the world we live in. Like, look, it's this funny thing where I get into these arguments where I'm nobody's friend, because my argument is, yeah, absolutely, we need to diversify the audience, like manga has. Manga has totally diversified the audience through genres and through all this different storytelling, and they're doing a great job at that. And you walk into a store and you can get some big tankobon, lots of pages of manga. It's black and white, boo, no color, but they're selling it for like, I was at Barnes and Noble the other day. They're like, here comes a manga sale, and all these tankobon volumes are, 40% off. And I said, I went up to, I'm like, hey, is manga not selling really well? They're like, no, manga's selling great. We do this once a quarter. We have manga sales time. I'm like, man, a lot of people would probably like to know that. But it's like, we do this because every time we do it, people come in and they spend a little bit of money, and then they come back for the next 3 to 4 months and they spend a lot more money. But even then, even if you're paying full price, you're paying like $6.99, sometimes $10, sometimes for a book that is like 280 pages. I'm just saying, it's a hell of a price difference. But they're able to capture that diverse audience, that new audience. So here's a viewer mail on this, and this is asking the same question. It says, "Hey Perch, with DC Comics, my own go-to universe, having 4.99 main ongoing titles, is there any evidence that they're pricing people out of the market? And could this be why DC hits are 10,000 copies less than a Marvel hit? I'm asking this as someone who just this week dropped Detective Comics from his polls for the first time, because if any comic shows how DC went from their 2016-2019 great talent, low cost strategy to today's mediocre talent, high cost strategy, it's Tamaki. No hate for her. Her earlier issues were fine. She just doesn't justify $4.99 a week for the same title, because keep in mind, Detective Comics is shipping weekly for a while. For the same time when I could be buying some back issues instead. I'm increasingly sympathetic to people who just quit their polls and went all in on back issues. These days, some McDuffie or John's back issues showing up from eBay feels better than my polls arriving, which wasn't the case just 2 years ago. By the way, just to put a point on it, Detective Comics, $20 a month investment. 20 for, let's see, about 80 pages of story. I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot. And I think Tamaki is definitely much better at DC than some of her work at Marvel. I'm not Starfire notwithstanding, but it's not good. Like it's not amazing. This isn't a legendary run that will be remembered forever. If they do put this in an omnibus, the only reason they're going to be doing that is because they're shoving everything else into an omnibus and they're desperate to keep those sales up. But regardless, yes, the answer is absolutely yes. Comics are pricing people out of the market. And unfortunately, it has got a whiplash effect of two things happening. So the new customers, the new fans are going to sustain this, do not agree with the price per value proposition. They do not. $4.99 is too high. And because you're not being able to hook them from there, now you're having to rely on hooking them into a DC Unlimited or Marvel Unlimited, where you're hoping they're going to come into the, that world. But it's unlikely they will. If you look at streaming services, typically you get somebody hooked on music or movies, and then eventually they decide, you know what, I'm going to pay a little bit more and just get unlimited. It's like, just recently, new to Dallas Fort Worth, and we go to the zoo, and I'm looking at it. It's like, I should just buy a zoo membership, because we come to the zoo with our kids twice. We've paid for the membership. And I'm like, in a year, am I going to come to the zoo twice? My kids love animals. Yes, we probably will. So I buy the membership, and then I always have this feeling of relief when we hit the zoo for the third time. It's like, now I'm saving money. It's a weird way of looking at it, I know, but that's how I think. That's how people who go in on these digital all-you-can-eat kind of apps also think. But the problem is, if you price so high at the beginning, they're not coming in. No new person to comics is going to be like, you know what I think I'll do? I think I'll spend $10 a month on a digital all-you-can-eat app. They're not going to do it. You got to hook them. And you generally need to hook them with some kind of physical product, or at least some small product. If that product is $5, they're not going to start. So they're out. So then you have your other audience, and your other audience is the audience that you typically find constant ways to insult. And by the way, I'm not one of these people like, they said that Trump was bad and I'm offended. It's not that insult. It's actually a different, more kind of sinister insult that I often see. And that is they refer to kind of the older fans, the fans of the 80s and 90s, as just kind of toxic, ugly people. Like they're gross people. They're gross. They're fans. That's why I always object when they have these dumb cartoons that show like these comic shops in the 80s were dark dungeons that used to make women uncomfortable and they were dirty and the guys were watching porn in there. And it's like, that's, that's not how it was. That's very much not how it was. And by the way, you're insulting the clientele that's keeping your business afloat. Because like I said at the beginning, you finally dropped Detective Comics. I guarantee you kept going much longer than other people would have. Definitely much longer than any new customer. They got an extra 2 years of money out, or three. You say you just dropped it. Well, they got an extra 2 to 3 years of money out of you at these higher rates because you've collected comics for a long time. You're going to do it. But unfortunately, that audience, that long-term comic audience, they are aware back issues exist, and they also know where to go get them. So again, if you keep prices too high, if you price people out, they won't want to do it, but eventually you'll push them into going, you know what? I'm still going to buy comics, just not this way. I'm going to do it back issues. I'm going to do it because previously, new comics were cheaper than back issues. You could buy, new comics for $1.99, even $2.99. Back issues might cost you $5 or $10. But if new issues from some random writer and some random run are going to be $5, and you can I can actually go and get some stuff from 20 years ago that's pretty much an epic, run for the same cost. Yeah, I'm going to do that. One, I'm going to get a good story. Two, it might be more collectible. That's got a better odds than what I got here. So that's the problem. The math is a problem. I think the key thing for a lot of publishers, they've got to understand that, look, you want that new audience. Again, I don't blame you. Scholastic and Viz are the new big two, not Marvel or DC. Give me a break. Scholastic is kicking your ass. Mayor Goodboy just dominated comics all over the place. So I get that you want a diverse audience. I get that you want those other people. You should. You are correct for trying to go get them. But remember that your current funders, your current audience, well, those people are not going to go for Mayor Goodboy type content. They know what they like. And if you're putting out 80 comics a month, you sure as hell better satisfy those people in addition to going after those new people. When you go after those new people, you're going to have to drop the price so they don't not bother to walk through the door in the first place. That's what you got to do. It's not that hard. It actually has nothing to do with politics. Yes, you should try and keep politics out of things, but the irony is not lost on me that the graphic novel that outsold Marvel and DC was Mayor Goodboy. Mayor. It's all about politics. I know. It's very different politics when you're talking about a talking dog running a town versus whatever the hell Kelly Sue's got going on. But anyway, it's just kind of funny. It's funny, right? Next time somebody tells you, oh, you keep my politics out of comics, go, you're right. Actually, the number one political book out there, the number one comic out there, the graphic novel was political. Hell, number one and number two. If you want to throw, Dogman's a book about the police. You got a book about the police and a book about the mayor. Those are your dominant books. You're right. You should do more politics. I don't think that's going to go well if you use that in an argument. Anyway, yeah, I think, obviously, I think prices are too high. Do you disagree? Do you have a better perspective? Come on, let me have it. Leave a comment below, like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.